John, it's good to have you here, as the previous editions with Brian and Claudia. Last time you were a big train fan in a museum, somewhat different environment, but also historic. As I said, good to have you here. And we spoke last year a bit about, in our talk, about how virtualization, how software-defined networking is really a big boost to the Zero Trust concept, which you pioneered. This year I'd like to have another question for you, and this is in this whole hype of hyperconvergence, re-platforming, what have you not. It seems that all the major players want to have a first row seat on the action, and they claim, no, trust me, it's either the hardware players or the software players, the virtualization players. Can you feel along with the CIO or the IT manager who is thinking, I want all this, I want the nice things and the Zero Trust security, but who should be in charge? Is this like a type of best of breed versus single vendor solution? Can you understand a bit of their confusion in today's landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you have in today's world is we're transitioning from network and device-centric views of security to a data-centric view of security. And that is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing in that it means that as we focus on protecting our important data assets and keeping them from being exfiltrated into the hands of malicious actors, we can use more vendor-neutral ways of doing that. But at the same time, it means that we have to get better insight into our data. And actually, Zero Trust Networks gives us the ability to get a tremendous amount of visibility, not just into threats, but into the actual data being used. And so that's what CIOs and various executives should be excited about. Is this has always been a data problem, but there's not been a way to really wrap their arms around it yet. That's what we're trying to solve right now. And so I think this is a time of great hope. And the technologies themselves that are out there, it may still seem confusing, but quite frankly, because of the way software is being used today, we'll be able to mix and match based upon our needs in a particular environment. So we won't have to try to create this artificially homogeneous technological world that never really worked in the first place. But we only did that because we thought that we might be able to get some management benefits from it. In a software-defined world, whether that's a software-defined data center or software-defined security or software-defined networking, it doesn't really matter. Software becomes an orchestration platform, and it solves the management problems that we were trying to solve by just sticking with one vendor. So it's actually a brave new world, I think, out there for technology executives.
A brave new world, but a world in which a lot of people are claiming that really they should be in the director's seat of what's happening, where you have the hardware guys or virtualization guys or the Nutanix or the converged guys. They're all saying, stick with us. And a lot of the presentations actually have the same, a lot of them have the same promise, right? Because it's such an obvious problem to make it invisible. But I can see your point. You say it's already good that we're progressing there, which is a good point in the first place there. Another question I'd like to pose to you is, in addressing threats and doing compliance and all that stuff, it seems that we've seen a recent surge of companies which are specifically addressing SaaS applications and security for that. And their claim is, if you don't really understand semantically what it is to share a file in Dropbox, or to expose it, or to do this in Office 365, you will not be able to do security policies. And you cannot really, also within the Zero Trust environment, within the company, you need a lot of knowledge of the semantics of those outside and the applications of those SaaS services. What's your take on the presumed extra difficulty of taking new SaaS applications into the Zero Trust security landscape?
Well, this is all about covering your AAS, so to speak. And so when we look at security, we need to ask a fundamental question. We call it the preposition problem. Are we talking about security in the cloud, for the cloud, or by the cloud? And I think what you're seeing is this understanding that the traditional security models don't necessarily work when they translate into any type of cloud environment, SaaS environment, any AAS environment. And so that Zero Trust, because it's data-centric, does fit. And when we talk about Zero Trust, we talk about ultimately enforcing or defending your data. And there's really only 4 things you can do to protect a piece of data. You can control access to that piece of data. You can inspect that access as it's happening. You can dispose of it, get rid of it so that it doesn't bother you in the future. Or you can do what we call kill the data. You can abstract it through tokenization or data masking or encryption. And ultimately, that's going to be the thing that solves a whole lot of our problems in SaaS types of environments, because I can move anything to Dropbox or Box, let's say, as long as the toxic payload itself is encrypted and I'm not moving the keys with it. And so we think encryption is going to solve some of those problems in the cloud, and encryption ties directly into the Zero Trust model in that manner.
Am I reading you correctly, or when I listen to you, that you're actually also saying that when you think that that you cannot control this cloud security merely by looking on the wire or looking at the APIs that these cloud vendors give for governance or compliance, that really encryption and measures along those lines are necessary, whatever you do on the other fronts?
Oh, absolutely. You will have to encrypt your toxic data. You know, encryption covers a multitude of sins, because a data breach is actually defined legally by laws, by regulators, by business partner agreements, and almost all of those by precedent only apply to unencrypted data that's been breached, not encrypted data, because encrypted data, in the absence of its keys, isn't data at all. It's just a bunch of gobbledygook. And so that's a huge benefit. You don't even have to report in most states or countries the exfiltration of encrypted data. No one cares, because it can't be monetized by cyber criminals. It can't be used, to increase somebody's R&D because they've stolen some intellectual property. That's why we're heading towards this new era of encryption, and it ties directly into the ideas that we first started advocating with the Zero Trust model.
So this presumably would have solved also, I thought there was a recent case in the US of some content found by accident on AWS, which happened to contain like 1 million health records or something like that, because a subcontractor had left it on an AWS. These are the type of problems which should never occur really in the encrypted world. Really, if this is not an afterthought, but if encryption is in everything that also subcontractors do, is really in the mesh.
You know, I would love to see that encrypted is the default data type in the future, and that we automatically and transparently encrypt and decrypt data based upon a user's need to know or right to access some particular data. And there's an awful lot of data that never needs to be unencrypted. You know, a credit card number almost never needs to be exposed in its plain text format. So I hope for my grandkids, you know, when they're packet sniffing, that they go, wow, look, there's some unencrypted data. We haven't seen that in a long time.
Right. Okay. One final question. It seems that a lot of the new companies targeting security and cloud also, they seem to be apart from encryption, but they seem to be saying if we throw deep learning and AI and pattern matching at this, you will see that we can make more sense out of data and data streams and say, hey, this is not only health record, but hey, this is a driving license, or this is that kind of security document or a labor contract, whatever. And you can apply policies based on those higher levels of abstraction, documents. What's your take on that, being able to see, hey, I found 50 driving licenses?
Certainly, security analytics tied into big data environments is going to be really important. One of the problems, though, is it's not going far enough, right? We talk about taking the data, turning it into insights, and that's where most people are stopping. But we need to have some automated action added to that. So if we can't automatically stop someone from stealing our data, all of these insights and machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence is just not very useful. And one of the things the industry isn't ready to do yet is say that we have enough knowledge about something to automate the response. And that's what I'm trying to advocate. And I think we can do it easier than what a lot of people are saying, because they're getting too much into the science of it. And quite frankly, a whole lot of data breaches and a whole lot of stuff that we see happening is actually fairly simple, and we know that it needs to be stopped. It's more having a culture of allowing us to do the right thing, empowering security professionals and other IT people to do the right thing, and it's about having the business buy-in to say it's okay to stop bad stuff. Most organizations will allow a lot of bad stuff to take place because they're so fearful that one little piece of good data might get impacted. And it's that fear that's inhibiting our entire industry. So we need to empower people to stop malicious actors right away and not go through big, extensive forensics and machine learning exercises to say, oh, that's something we should have looked at a long time ago.
Right, the knowledge is there already. That's not a bottleneck yet.
Yeah, I think in many ways we're looking in the wrong places. And so once we start getting more data centric and learn more about the types of data we have, most companies don't do any type of data discovery or classification, so they're just wandering around hoping that they find the right data and that somehow they protect it, but they don't have any real insight into the data that they do need to protect. And that's the fundamental problem in this age that we now call the data economy.
Well, they can start with that, that's for sure. I'm looking forward to your talk this afternoon, John, and
Thank you again, Jan. It's
good
always a
having
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.